Friday, October 11th, 2024. And so we're heading into the home stretch of this election. And, as somebody said, it's all hands on deck um, to get out the vote and get out the message. And um, so Kamala Harris has surrogates working all over the place. And yesterday, Obama did a big thing, I guess, in Pennsylvania. Um, and and she's talking to all sorts of different groups of people. And today on the View, well, they talked about Obama and whether or not he'll have any impact. And yeah, I think he does have an impact. He was spent some time specifically talking to a crowd of black people, and apparently, from the video, it looked like it was a mixed bag between male and female. But the apparently they're saying that he was talking to a group of black men, but it looked like he was just talking to a group of black people, talking about you voting against your best interest if you're supporting Trump, and if you can't vote for a woman, or if you can't get on board, your misogyny is showing. And like he sort of plainly said, that's unacceptable. Pull your shit together and get over yourself. Um, but then he also did a big speech in front of a big crowd of people, and uh, and when he asked, do you think Donald Trump has ever changed a diaper? And somebody in the crowd said his own, and Obama laughed and said, I almost was going to say that, but then I decided I shouldn't. Um, it it's it's only funny, but then it's also mean because he does wear diapers. He has worn diapers for decades. He hasn't. He's Trump is incontinent. It's well documented. People that worked on The Apprentice, he would blow out his diaper in the boardroom scenes. They'd have to take him away and clean him up and and start reshooting again. Um, this was it was known back then. At the time, it's just but I don't think he needs to be made fun of because he's incontinent. But he does wear diapers. I mean, that is true. Um, anyway, uh, then they go into this. The ladies go into this whole thing about what's going to help and what's not going to help and who they need to reach. And um, Amy Alyssa Farfalla Griffin actually made a really astute point about why Sonny's question on with the interview with Kamala Harris is getting traction about when she said, "Would you do anything different than the current administration?" And Harris said, "Nothing comes to mind," and then sort of walked her way through, being different life experience, blah 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 blah, and what my focus would be. I think Harris could have answered that question better, but I don't know why that is such a big deal. And Amy Alyssa Farfalla Griffin keeps talking about. I was talking about the winner is seen as someone who's the agent of change, and I get where she's going with that whole point. But the people who are interested in an agent of change are the ones who are dissatisfied with how things are going right now, and that's not a lot of people. A lot of people are mad about the price of groceries and the price of gas. Although I just paid under $3 in the state of New York a gallon yesterday, so I'm not so mad. Um, and that I understand being needs to be addressed. Um, but Sonny's argument is, why do you need to change something when Biden administration is one of the most successful in modern history? And the problem is that's not the perception. People don't perceive it to be successful because they're mad about the price of eggs and the price of gas. So um, so I mean they're both right in a way, but um, it's a lot of those people uh, that Alyssa is talking about that are looking for change don't really understand what the difficulties are, and they might not be. Um, it might not matter in any way whatsoever. They say that they're looking for a change, but they can't really pinpoint what it is. Um, and it, what it is they want to change. And a lot of times it's, I don't like the way the direction this country is headed, which is just a generic term for saying I don't like the Democrats. Um, and I can't really pinpoint anything. I've seen that so many. I just don't like the way this country is headed. I don't like the direction this country is going. You see it over and over again, but then they don't have any idea what that actually means, or they can't define that or explain that. Um, these are people that are not very engaged, and they're sort of going off sort of gut feeling and what they see are perceived grievances based on what they're told from the media, which is a terrible place to get your information, at least the corporate media. So, and then it, Sarah goes on this rant about who has a good heart, it, and you can tell the difference. And Sunny sort of challenges her on that. It's like, you're rainbows and kittens, but you can't do polling data on anybody's heart. And and Sarah comes back and says, I'm not being Pollyanna about this, but I'm saying if you reach somebody's heart, um, that's you'll that's what's going to motivate people. And she's missing the entire point about where there are cultural differences between types of people, and that's why these things get sort of mapped out these ways. Yes, people get talked about in broad swaths in the way that they shouldn't. Um, and Sarah is under the assumption in that argument that everyone makes decisions based on their heart, and that's just not true. A lot of people make decisions based on their head, and sometimes against their heart, sometimes against their better interest. Um, I mean, if you look at the television program Survivor, it's a wonderful little sort of microcosm of that kind of thing, where people go through the struggle of saying, well, this person is my ally and my closest friend, and I really like them a lot, but they're in the way of me winning this game, so I have to vote them out. And so that's a decision of head over heart, right? And a lot of people, their heart may be going in a certain direction, but their head's going to be like, but hey, what about the eggs? What about the gas? What about the border? What about all these things that people keep yelling at me about, that I'm supposed to care about, apparently? So it's a false argument, and I understand she got kind of really passionate about it, and I understand where she's coming from, but that's because Sarah works from the heart, and that's just not how a lot of people work, and I dare say probably the majority of people work. The heart plays a part of it, but the head takes over for a lot of it. Um, so that was that was an odd argument. And when I hate the argument that people are saying we have to do better with women, we have to do better with black men, we have to do better with, well, you would do better if you had policies, and could articulate them, and resonate with those groups of people. I hate the fact that people like, I need to say the right thing to get these people on board. I hate that whole, and it's just assumed that that's part of the manipulation, and I don't like that part of the way that we talk about politics and campaigns. If you're Trump has a huge big problem with women in general because of his stance on abortion and reproductive rights. um, so and I think that when you look at polls, and you're doing this sort of strategy based on polling, you're missing out on a lot, because there's a lot of women who aren't going to tell you. Um, they're going to be secretly, they're still hiding behind their blowhard husband. Yes, dear. Yes, dear. Yes, dear. But when they go to the ballot box, nobody has to see that, and they can tick the box that they want and be like, I don't know how she won. And that happens a lot in those kinds of relationships where the man wears the pants, but the woman has her own opinions and own ideas, and when she has the opportunity to express it in private, she can. But it's not going to be public about it, and they throw their hands up, and it's like, oh, that's him, that's Billy Bob. um, oh my god, I have a great story about that, um, but it takes too long. Anyway, that's funny. So there's all of that, and then we're talking about all of this polling data. Part of the problem is that the polls don't really go deep enough with a large enough cross section of people to actually figure out what all those things are that you need to do and who those groups are that you need to reach. Because it's just that the what we're now doing is parsing out with such diversity that we don't have a large enough sample size to actually understand what those issues are. And it's really interesting because, with this whole argument, um, Harris has a ton of surrogates, and she's been doing all of these um, podcasts and influencers, and there's been all of these separate groups that are basically surrogates for her. The white dudes for Harris, and the black women for Harris, and the farmers for Harris, and there have been so many of these virtual town halls doing outreach to all of these very specific groups online, which is the first time I've ever seen this happen in a campaign, and especially on this kind of level. They've been raising huge amounts of money that way. So for anyone to say that she's not um, casting the net wide and talking to niche groups, that's incorrect. She may not be doing it directly. And now we're at a point towards the end of the campaign where she is going to do these things directly. She was at a thing at Univision, a town hall and Univision, and they didn't show this on The View, but there's a clip of a woman who she's an American citizen. Her parents were illegal immigrants. She was born here, and then she was able to get her father's citizenship, but not her mother. And in the process of that, um, the mother died about 6 weeks ago, or 6 weeks prior. I guess 6 weeks because it was yesterday. And because she couldn't get the proper care because she was not um, documented. Blah blah blah. And so, and if you watch that, to Sarah's point, if you're looking at someone with heart, the way that Kamala Harris responded to that woman, um, and sort of, they're 20 feet apart, but sort of held her care, um, and sort of walked through um, what can be done. And first and foremost, she responded to her about her mother, right, and how you carry her mother's spirit and her strength, and it was really wonderful. Um, and at the end of the town hall, the first thing that she did, she put the microphone down and she walked right over to that woman to hold her hand and talk to her. And it's really that, if you want to talk about the judging someone on their content of their character, that was a beautiful, beautiful moment, and that you would never see from Trump. But that's not going to move the needle with everybody. And this whole idea, and I don't remember who. I think it was Anna Navarro said, "I want to see Kamala out and doing these things." She is doing these things, um, and that's why she's been on these niche podcasts. She is talking to people. She's doing a town hall with Charlemagne the God. I get it. It is weird to me that we talk about these situations in elections, and we talk about these broad swaths of people, and the outreach to specific kinds of groups of people, and I just feel like, how much do people actually need? um I don't need to touch you. I don't need to see you in person. You don't need to come to my diner. I don't. It's weird to me, this the sort of weird entitlement that people have, specifically about the presidential race. Um, when I can see it more in in a local race, when you're talking about um, town or county or even state legislature or even federal for your district, I can see that more about where you want that candidate who's literally representing you in the government and is your vote, is your voice in the chambers, where you'd want that kind of connection. But it just seems like for the presidential election, people seem to me, seem to be asking for too much from a single candidate, and not understanding the choices. It's like, um, and this whole excuse about not knowing her well enough, or not answering specifically your particular plight. um, you already know everything about Donald Trump and how terrible he is. So I don't understand why, what more you need. And I get it. It's not like I don't want to go in there and vote against someone. But you know what? In every election, you don't always get what you want. My first election, it was uh, Bush and Dukakis. I wasn't exactly excited about voting for Michael Dukakis. I didn't think he was an exciting candidate. I didn't love him. I don't think he necessarily spoke to me, but I knew I didn't like the other guy, and I didn't want more years of Reaganomics. You know, I was old enough to know then that what we were doing was going the wrong direction. Um, so there, I voted for the agent of change. Um, but you don't, you just can't. That's the thing. It's like I feel like our electorate feels way too entitled um, for their specificity uh, than than they really should, specifically about the presidential election. Um, but you know, I don't believe any of the polls. I think that we're in a good spot, but I understand why you can't say that out loud, and you need to make sure that every stone's unturned. And it was interesting to see how heated Sonny got about specificity of demographics, and Anna be like, well, 7 out of 10. If you address them, maybe you could get 9 out of 10. That's you know that's an attack dog. I like that. Um, but I feel like as much as candidates can address issues, a large swaths of people, you're never going to be able to get um, 100% consensus of everything. Are there I have concerns about Kamala Harris. Yeah, I don't feel like she's going to go hard enough, should she get elected, to make real fundamental change. I would like to talk about, um, you know, getting back to the Medicare for all, and removing our institutionalized insurance program, which people mistake insurance for healthcare instead of actual healthcare being healthcare. Your insurance provider is not healthcare. It's a for-profit business taking advantage of you. Anyway, um, but it's 100% clear what the right choice is in this election. So I just it's a frustrating conversation to have, because it's like I literally don't understand what more do you need to know um, for you to feel confident in your decision about what you're doing. What kind of flip flop moral compass um, or lack of integrity do you have to not know what you're doing in this election?